Okay, so this being concerned with meditation and the discourse itself is, it has a couple different uses or benefits, and one is meditation, and the other is healing. Oftentimes, when there's meditation themes that are very important that are brought out, and then maybe I'll just read a bit of it, and then begin. So this is the discourse is from the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of the Tens, Sutta number 60. It's the Girimananda Sutta. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Girimananda was sick, afflicted, and gravely ill. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, Bhante, the Venerable Girimananda is sick, afflicted, and gravely ill. It would be good if the Blessed One would visit him out of compassion. Then the Buddha responds, if, Ananda, you visit the Bhikkhu Girimananda and speak to him about 10 perceptions, it is possible that on hearing about them, his affliction would immediately subside. What are the 10? 1 is perception of impermanence, 2 is perception of non-self, 3 is perception of unattractiveness, 4 is the perception of danger, 5 is the perception of abandoning, 6 is the perception of dispassion, 7 is the perception of cessation, 8 is a perception of non-delight in the entire world, 9 is a perception of impermanence in all conditioned phenomena, and 10 is mindfulness of breathing. And then he explains all of those 10 perceptions, what they are, and then he ends with, so if, Ananda, you visit the Bhikkhu Girimananda, speak to him about these 10 perceptions, it is possible that in hearing about them, he will immediately recover from his affliction. Then, when the Venerable Ananda had learned these 10 perceptions from the Blessed One, he went to the Venerable Girimananda and spoke to him about them. When the Venerable Girimananda heard about these 10 perceptions, his affliction immediately subsided. The Venerable Girimananda recovered from that affliction, and that is how he was cured of his affliction. And that's so it's and these different perceptions, and these are all what are called sanya, and the use of perception is really important in the sense that we tend to this, and in the Pali it's anicca sanya, anatta sanya, perception of the unattractive, asubha sanya. So these are perceptions that we bring up in the mind to direct our attention, and particularly in meditation, but not necessarily confined to that. But I think one of the things that I thought was important to be addressing is that one, just the use of the mind, because oftentimes in meditation we tend to assume that somehow we've got to stop the mind from thinking conceiving, movement, if we could just still the mind, then we would somehow become peaceful and wise and enlightened. And this is a very good example of a sutta where the Buddha is giving meditation instruction and really focusing on lifting up of the mind to certain perceptions and ways of, because you're bringing up certain themes in the mind, so that as we have a different ways of associating, because when we speak of sanya, the word sanya, it has a few layers of meaning. One is memory, one is association, and of course the dominant one of perception, that you are recognition, so that we recognize something. But then, as is evidenced by this sutta, this is something that one, say, directly lifts up in the mind as a way of perceiving things, and it's through a lens. One perceives things through a lens of impermanence, or one perceives things through a lens of anatta, or of whatever. That sense of seeing the danger in things, the adinava. So, and there's these 10 particular perceptions, and we'll go through. And one of the things that I started as I was researching this, sort of think, I'm going to have to be careful how just trying to keep this fairly tight. It's I was remembering when I first took the monks from Wat Nana Chat out for a retreat period in along the border of Burma. There's this very remote area, Dawdam, and I think we spent 4 weeks there, and I used the Girimananda Sutta for 4 weeks, so to encourage and give instruction. So there's lots that can be said, but I think a lot of it is just stimulating interest in the sense, what are these different ways? Because as I say, there's this assumption that what we have to do is, stop the mind from any kind of movement or kind of engaging, and the Buddha is quite explicit in that use of the application of the mind, so that there's and perception. Just because one used the word perception, doesn't mean that there's that somehow you've got this pure perception that is you're trying to isolate somehow and just trying to apply some kind of pure perception. Because there's a discourse where the Buddha points us. It's in the Majjhima 43. It's the greater discourse on questions and answers, and it's a discussion that Sariputta and Mahakotita are having. Mahakotita asks Sariputta, perception. Thus it is said, to what extent, friend, is it said to be perception? And then and Sariputta said, well, it perceives, and perceives features of things. But then Mahakotita asks, feeling, perception, and consciousness, are these qualities conjoined or disjoined? Is it possible, having separated them one from another, to delineate the difference among them? And Sariputta answers, feeling, perception, and consciousness are conjoined, friend, not disjoined. It is not possible, having separated them one from another, to delineate the difference among them. For what one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one cognizes. Therefore, these qualities are conjoined, not disjoined, and it is not possible, having separated them one from another, to delineate the difference among them. And similarly, the Mahakotita asks about that in terms of, say, like consciousness and wisdom or discernment, and saying, and he says, what are these, say, consciousness and discernment? Are they conjoined or disjoined? And say, like, and say, discernment and consciousness, friend, are conjoined, not disjoined. It's not possible to delineate the difference between them. For what one discerns, that one cognizes. What one cognizes, that one discerns. So it's that there's a function of that. These are together. But then he's asked, well, what's the difference between wisdom and consciousness? And Sariputta says, wisdom or discernment and consciousness, friend, of these qualities that are conjoined, not disjoined, discernment or wisdom is to be developed, consciousness is to be fully comprehended, in the sense that because wisdom is a mental formation, is a sankhara, consciousness is its own khandha. So similar to feeling and perception. So these are all sort of together, and what we have to do is learn how to use them, and to be able to so that the exercising of perception in a skillful way is an exercise in discernment. What it discerns, or how it discerns, is then cognized, and we need to understand that. So these things are working together, and our just by not ever thinking anything, or not ever having any kind of mental formation or mental event cross the mind, doesn't mean you're going to become either peaceful or wise. You have to learn how to use these mental qualities. You have to learn how to become skillful with them. You have to learn how to develop them. So that's meditation practice. Actually lifting up perceptions, learning how to become skillful, lifting up perceptions in the mind so that we start to affect our experience, so that it's like there's a couple other discourses where the Buddha uses it's just before the Girimananda Sutta. It's a couple of them. It's 10 perceptions. They're completely different ones. Not completely. Probably more than half are the same, but they're somewhat different. But anyway, what the Buddha says about that in that discourse is bhikkhus, these 10 perceptions, when developed and cultivated, are of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as their consummation. So that's, one could, even though the Buddha doesn't say that explicitly in the Girimananda Sutta, but that is certainly one can assume that in the that has that same potential and possibility. So that this opportunity to work with perception, how to lift perception up into the mind. It's just like this. The very first one is the perception of impermanence. And when the Buddha says, and what Ananda is the perception of impermanence. Here, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. And of course, that's the standard preamble to meditation instruction, going off to some quiet place to meditate. Bhikkhu reflects thus. Form is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, perception is impermanent, volitional activities are impermanent, consciousness is impermanent. Thus he dwells contemplating impermanence and these five aggregates subject to clinging. This is called the perception of impermanence. So it's just on a certain level, it's pretty generic, just contemplating the five aggregates, the constituents of being, and just being able to recollect, remember, remind oneself these are impermanent, or they are inconstant, uncertain, unsure, whichever way one wants to translate anicca sanya. So that use of lifting up these perception to remind oneself of one's experience being fundamentally unsure, uncertain, and to keep lifting that up, because oftentimes the mind gets tired of that, or it wants to and sort of I don't want to bother with impermanence. I just want things to be nice. But there's a certain kind of lack of willingness to attend to things clearly. And similarly, that the use of thought is when these are conjoined and not disjoined, then the way that we can be bringing up that perception is, of course, through the thought process, and that in the as a meditation, the use, like when the Buddha delineates what are the factors of, say, first jhana, the first stage of the mind being very steady and stable. There's vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata. So vitakka being initial, so it depends on the translation, initial thought or sustained thought, and vichara being, vitakka being initial thought or directed thought, and vichara being sustained thought or evaluation. Those are good translations of those. But it's the using the thought process, so that you, and that's how and the way that Ajahn Chah described it was always you're using thought to lift an object up into the mind. So in terms of a perception, you lift up the thought in the mind, okay, body is impermanent. Lifting up that feeling is impermanent. And then that seeding the mind with that perception or that thought. Then it's there's that sustained thought or evaluation where one's starting to hold one's attention around that. And then, of course, that can sustain itself for a shorter or a longer period of time, and then you have to, and the mind starts to wander, or it becomes dull, so then you lift it up in the mind again. It's that use of thought and perception working together. So those are very fundamental ways that we're using this process of perception to help the mind to become more settled and clear. It's also a certain retraining of perception and of the mind itself. In that way, there's just always these habits of mind that we go down the same old track that we're used to, and then we forget that there's anything other than that, and so that either whether it's a focus on some kind of distraction or some kind of self-perception or some perception of duty that one has all the time, so that one keeps engaging in that. Then that just learning how to give options to the mind. So that's a different perception. So that you're using that perception process to retrain, redirect our attention. So that these, and of course these different themes that the Buddha gives in the Girimananda Sutta are extremely helpful for that. So that you're learning how to apply the mind as opposed to just stopping the mind. Learning how to use the mind rather than trying to negate the mind. And it's an important shift. Then we're lifting up these themes that are really helpful, and these are oftentimes, sometimes people will ask, well, is this a insight practice, or is it a tranquility practice? Is it samatha? Is it vipassana? And that's kind of a red herring. It's just practice. Just learning how to train the mind, and as the mind, these are, the Buddha rarely divided things up in terms of that, this is pure insight practice, or this is pure vipassana, or this is pure samatha. It isn't the way the Buddha approached it. But these are two aspects of the mind that we need to learn how to use and to reconcile with each other, so that they bring about a sense of peace and clarity and understanding and penetration, really. So that the use of these perceptions are a really helpful basis for that, and that is a part of the in terms of our meditation practice, learning how to direct attention in ways that are fruitful and beneficial. How do we? Because that is, say that one of the qualities that the Buddha points to as say essential, necessary, useful, is this quality called yoniso manasikara, sort of wise attention, skillful reflection. And so that seeding or directing the mind with perception, the perceptual process, if it holds our attention in a skillful way, then this yoniso manasikara has an opportunity work, to function. So they work together. So just learning how to develop that, learning how to support that. So these aspects of perception and learning how to use that perceptual process is important. So maybe before I go on for too long, should see if there's any questions, clarification needed. Yes, caution.
You were saying to sustain these, you need energy, right? Normally it seems like our mind, whatever patterns they follow, that probably uses up energy as well. It seems like a little bit of a chicken and egg. In order to bring these up, you need energy, but the habitual pattern seems to like waste energy, not have it available.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting in terms of mindfulness, when we're mindful or when we have a positive, the mind is directed to a positive object, or it's directed from a positive place, then the energy's there. It's like a great example is the lunar observance nights, the meditation vigils, and it can be really tiring on the day of the meditation vigils, just thinking about having to stay up. And you haven't even got to the yo so to start the chanting. It's like, oh man. But if it's just by if the mind is taking an interest in the meditation, in the chanting, and walking, the sitting, it's just it's more often than not. I mean, sometimes it is a bit tough, but that more often than not, it's the energy comes from the actual sitting and the meditation, the reflection, the contemplation. So it's similar with that, where that directing attention to a wholesome object, it tends to uplift the mind and energize it. Yeah, Neil.
So maybe I misunderstood this, but the consciousness, perception, and feeling, or in the other order, I guess,
Yes.
are conjoined and cannot be delineated.
Separated.
Separated.
Yeah, I mean delineated in the sense that they're like that's a discrete, like you can eliminate consciousness, eliminate feeling, and just have pure perception with no consciousness and no feeling.
Okay.
That's what it's pointing to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're conjoined.
Because it seemed to imply, it made me wonder why there was any need to have three different names if they were all conjoined, but I think that explains it.
Well, they have different flavors or different functions, so that it's helpful to have because our mind is capable of doing more than one thing. So it's being able to have a name or a label for it. So you go, oh right, that's that function.
So would it be correct to say then that no one of those three can arise without the other two being there?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Just as in the sutta, what one feels, one perceives. What one perceives, that one cognizes. So. Yeah, Frank.
I have a question about what an actual or a practical practice, meditation practice, would look like when you raise it to
Yeah.
a concept or a perception, and then
Yeah.
kind of sustain.
Yeah.
What would that look like for as a daily practice?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I thought I'd just sort of throw out a few ideas, and then turn to the more practical in a few minutes. Okay. Yeah, John.
Is one approach to this, or one path into this, just trying to feel what you sit down to meditate, or just wake up in the morning and experience turmoil and that sort of thing, and applying the toolkit kind of to that and trying to parse where it's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're holding on to or whatever else is causing. Is that a path into this? Is that related to this in a way?
That could be related. I mean, because part of it is also it's more like holding a perception around it rather than trying to analyze too much. Because usually, once we start analyzing,
It's a slippery slope.
it's a rabbit hole. Yeah. So that's a skillful use of perception, where you can feel your mind going down this rabbit hole, and then you can pick up a different perception. So that lifting up the perception of dispassion, like viraga sanya, or the perception of pahana sanya, of abandoning, of setting aside. So then then you're lifting up a perception that will help counter that and help keep the mind balanced.
That's a more positive, I think, view of it than thinking of it as a toolkit.
Mm.
Like you got a flat tire in your head and you have to fix it. That's a much more positive way.
Okay. Yeah.
Lifting the mind.
So it sounds as if one could use skillfully almost any of the teachings as a perception. For example, the Four Noble Truths or
Mm-hmm.
the Parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Another question is, you said something about using the perception as a lens on experience. What is experience? Is it
As a what? Oh, a lens. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. As a lens on experience. Oh, so that what you're so like the perception, and again where you have the anicca sanya, the perception of impermanence, anatta sanya, perception of not self, asubha sanya, perception of the unattractive nature of the body, adinava sanya, perception of the drawbacks of things, the difficult nature of things, perception of abandoning, perception of dispassion, perception of cessation. So you can take experience and then view it through the lens of something like it's being impermanent, or you can take it and look in terms of dispassion and settling, or whichever lens you want to shine on it or look at it through. And of course then we'll experience it from that lens. And then it reconfigures what our experience is. Because if something might be extremely, it's really compelling and really attractive, but then you can look at it and say, looking at it from the sense of, say, of dispassion. What would dispassion look like with this experience? Or something is really irritating and upsetting, or some circumstance or some whatever. But then one looks at it through the lens of anatta. Okay, well, this is really not myself. It's an experience, yes, but this isn't my eternal abiding self. That's what it feels like. I'm always, I'm miserable now, I'm always going to be miserable. There's no hope. So it just helps to redefine, restructure, reconfigure how we perceive that.
And then a different experience comes about.
Yes, then a whole different experience arises from that. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about skillful perception of self.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for instance, in daily life, there might not be enough space. So, like in a work situation where a coworker, for instance, speaks harsh words in front of everyone, and these kind of things, there might not be enough space to apply those perceptions. Like that, I can wake up in meditation. Okay, this is an unpleasant sensations. It will pass.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to kind of consciously build a sense of self, such as, really making it exaggerated. Like I am a disciple of the noble ones. I follow that lineage.
Yeah.
Therefore, we do not react to,
Mm-hmm.
we endure harsh words.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you talk, because at the same time we're trying to depersonalize experience and
Yeah.
but also I find, and especially in lay life,
Yeah.
how to solidify a sense of self and when to stop doing it, when, because the line
Yeah.
is thin here.
Yeah, no, the line, and that's where, say, dukkha is really helpful. So then and that's where I think one of the, there's a set of teachings that the Buddha gives, which are called like protective meditations, and it's just 4 particular meditations or contemplations, reflections, perceptions even, but the recollection of the Buddha, Buddhanussati, so that, and so that would fit into the, yes, I'm a disciple of the Lord Buddha, and one can really lift up the mind, so like in that sense of protecting it from the kind of negative tendency that is either impingement or our own internal reactions. So then it's a way of support. Another is the metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. That's a very positive way that one can be lifting up. And these are all perceptions. I mean, they're a way of cultivating a way of perceiving or giving options to the mind. And the other is more like, because those are like inspiring the mind or energizing it, and the other 2 tend to be a bit more like breaks, or so recollection of death, recollection of the asubha sanya, the perception of the unattractive, so that when the mind is getting caught up in some kind of attraction, fascination, obsession, then those are ways of sort of reining it in, where others are, so you're lifting it up. So those are really important themes, to giving the mind options, in the sense, skillful options. I mean, we love our options, and sometimes those options aren't so great. But this is really giving the mind really skillful, beautiful options that we can very consciously choose to cultivate. And again, this is where, as a training, one is reminding oneself that is a possibility. Yeah.
You mentioned loving kindness, and I don't know if I'm going too far off into a different
Yeah.
direction, but I've been having troubles to explain to myself and sort of explain to others, in the sense of not going into a kind of like well, brothers and sisters, like a too hippish kind of thing, which doesn't feel what the Buddha meant, loving kindness.
Yeah.
And yet, when we say, oh, there's no self, we're all one, it's
Yeah.
very easy
Yeah.
to kind of end up there, and I'm not quite sure what the Buddha actually said, where to draw the boundaries.
I think one of the ways is that I like the way that, say, metta, loving kindness, is translated into the Thai language, because it's more like it's literal translation is more like well-wishing, so that one wishes oneself well, one wishes good things for oneself. Doesn't mean one's sort of smarmy and insufferable. But one's wishing, in that wishing well, there is an emotion of warmth, as opposed to a cold analysis of impersonal phenomena. so that there is kind of a balance between those two. Andy, yeah.
I'm sitting here trying to, the word perception being an aggregate, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we've been talking kind of like a reflection on, I'm trying to understand the aggregate of like dispassion means, how do you perceive dispassion? I'm trying to understand.
Okay, yeah, good.
So,
No, that's a really, because there's the aggregate of perception in the five aggregates, but there's the activity of perception, which is the same word. So that one is, I should have said that about half an hour, no, maybe 40 minutes ago. So yeah, because it can be a bit confusing. So this is an action. It's similar to like samkhara is both a aggregate, but then it's also an activity that one engages in mental formations. So that sanya is it's an act of perceiving, say, as well as a static aggregate within the five aggregates. So it's something one engages in. So this with that, which is probably, this is a good time to actually just talk about it a bit in terms of how we can use these perceptions, and because it's in the same way that say as monastics, one of the things that the Buddha encouraged us as monastics is to develop the perception of being a religious seeker, a samana sanya, so that we remind ourselves of our status, in the sense that we're religious seekers, we rely on alms food, we are supposed to be committed to that which is peaceful, which is part of the root of the word samana. So it's a recluse, a religious seeker, a peaceful being. I mean, he says, if you got the name samana, recluse, are you actually recluses? So something you cultivate and lift up. It's like a reminder for ourselves. Because that's another aspect, a function of sanya is memory as well. Memory, association, so reminding ourselves. So that, just in that way, it's like remembering anicca, and we sort of like perception of impermanence. Okay, this is impermanence, but also reminding ourselves, oh, this is impermanent. The form, the example that the Buddha uses in this is the five aggregates. I'm not 100% sure why he chose that, but they are, and then because also he because the perception of not self, anatta sanya, that he gives, perception of not self, is around the sense bases. The eye is not self, forms are not self, ear are not self, sounds are not self, which, say like in the discourse, the Anguttara Sutta, then he uses the five aggregates as the basis for explaining and pointing to not self. But in this discourse, they are. So I think it's oftentimes rather than being, it's like spreading out that concept and realizing that it applies to many aspects of our experience. So that looking at those aspects of when we just sight and forms, our hearing, sounds that we hear. These are not. This is not I. This is not me. This is not mine. They are sense impressions that come and go. They are causally formed, so that that bringing up that quality of perception. So those are, in terms of whether it's in meditation or in day-to-day life, then those are reminders and bringing up that perception. Okay, this is not self. It's not necessary to create a self-identity around these aspects of experience, the whole realm of the senses, or the aspects of how we look at body, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness.
Can I ask on a couple of specific ones? Like
Yeah.
for me, sometimes the unattractiveness of the body.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that, but I don't feel that way personally. You know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, and like dispassion.
Yeah.
So if I don't feel those things, then I have to conjure them up.
It's good to. It's good to entertain it as a possibility. One, because the Buddha obviously thought it was important, but it doesn't mean. But when he gives 10 different tools, then you don't have to use all of them at once. All you need is like that, just that one tool to get that speaker in the wall. It's sort of like, and that's the richness of the teachings, or is that we can approach it with different tools or different angles, but the actual goal and the direction are the same. So then this aspect of the perception of the asubha sanya, perception of unattractive nature of the body, and that's the classic description: 32 parts of the body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. Flesh, sinews, bones, all the externals, internals, kidneys, heart, liver, lungs, intestines, all the different fluids, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, tears. It's all, these are contemplating these different, the nature of their unattractive nature, and that's sort of, and it can be contemplated in so many different ways. But it has a tendency to settle the mind, soothe the mind, incline the mind to dispassion, or to reflection, or what do we actually like say sit here and look around and I see Dennis and Nick and Kaushik and Mark and Jeannie, but on another level, the only thing that is actually apparent is hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. There isn't anything else that we see, any of us see. And then we formulate those into people, and then we have memories, and then we have associations, and we have stories, so hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. That's all we see, and it's just that's all that's there. But it's, of course, that's we're using logic to extrapolate that. Yeah.
What about an energetic perception? I don't think that's right. Is it perception is the way that when you say what we see, is that see with the eye?
Yeah, I mean, what we see with the eye. What we see with the mind is all the stories, all the memories, all the projections. That's what we see with the mind. But what we see with the eye is when we other human beings. That's what's there. And it's helpful to actually know that, to make that difference, because the habit of the mind is to fix people in certain ways, and so that to be able to find, and that's where the perception, where we can kind of shake up perceptions to some like our associations and memories that we have, and the projections and stories can be questioned a bit, rather than being ultimate realities, which we oftentimes invest in. Yeah.
I just wanted to note, if anyone's interested in extended instruction on this practice, Ajahn Gunaratana gave some during the 2015 winter retreat.
Yeah.
And those are on the web and on CD if anyone would like to see the slideshows that he provided.
Yeah, that was a great tutorial. And then the next perception is the perception of danger, adinava. And this is there's again, sort of perceptions in terms of how we view experience. Like the Buddha says, like seeing and it's one of the ways that the Buddha himself described his enlightenment. I mean, sometimes he described his enlightenment through seeing the Four Noble Truths, being awakened to the Four Noble Truths, sometimes through dependent origination, whatever. But one of the ways was seeing the benefit as the benefit, seeing the drawback as the drawback, seeing the way out as the way out. And that's asada is the benefit, or asada is actually literally it means the sweet taste. So what's the benefit, the beneficial, the pleasant aspect? The adinava is the danger, the drawback, and nitsarana is the way out, the escape, the fruit. So that in terms of pleasant experience, unpleasant experience, appearances of the world, just being able to see it from that perspective. But in this discourse, the Buddha is pointing to the perception of the drawback or the danger, and saying, okay, there's all, and he points to different. One is he pointing to the human body and all of the different illnesses that are possible. I won't go through them all. There's a lot. And this is really a very short list. In this, I remember one time being in hospital in Thailand and having a particular illness, which I had found out about, and then so I thought, well, maybe I'll go to the hospital library. This is in Ubon. This is not a big hospital, and it's a country hospital. I thought, well, I'll go to their library and look up this particular illness and get a better understanding of it. And you go into this room, and of course there's shelves and shelves of books, and it really hit me. Well, this is all of these books are all of the things that go wrong with the human body. That's just a small library in a country hospital. So yeah, the perception of danger or drawback. Yeah, there is there is this possibility of difficulty, and then the perception of abandoning, in the sense of pahana is to abandon, to relinquish, to let go, and that it says, a bhikkhu does not tolerate an arisen sensual thought. He abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, obliterates it, so that they doesn't tolerate an arisen thought of ill will, a thought of harming, and those are actually the three. In terms of when the Buddha defines what are, say, wrong thought and right thought in the Sankappa, in the Eightfold Path, say, thoughts of sensuality are miccha sankappa, say, wrong thought, wrong intention, thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of harming. And of course, the opposite is true: thoughts of relinquishment, thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion. So those are but that thought of abandoning, and so that abandoning unwholesome states when they arise. So it's a perception of abandoning. We have that opportunity to put down various kinds of thoughts that tend to obsess the mind and agitate it. And then the perception of dispassion. And again, it's here, having gone to the forest, the root of a tree, an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. This is peaceful, this is sublime. That is the stilling of all activities, relinquishment of all acquisitions, the destruction of craving, dispassion, nibbana. This is called the perception of dispassion. And that's, to me, that's a really beautiful description of where we're headed, where we're going. What are we trying to do with all this? What's the point of these perceptions? So that bringing up so that dispassion is not just annihilating any kind of feeling, so it wasn't feel anything, but it's more like giving oneself the opportunity to experience, this is what is truly peaceful. This is what is really sublime. And so that when we're willing to have that quality of cooling. Another, say, the word is viraka sanya. So viraka, so quite literally, dispassion, but it also has the meaning of fading away. That's just letting things fade. So often we don't let them fade. It's sort of, it's just, something, it's so sort of pathetic sometimes to watch our mind. Just go back to some memory from who knows how long ago and to stir it up again. And we don't let it fade away. It can be a pleasant one that we're nostalgic about, or it's an unpleasant one that we have a grudge against. But it's or a sense of kind of we've taken exception, sort of righteous indignation that we feel, and we go stir it all up again. So that perception of dispassion, we can let things fade away. We can be dispassionate towards those habits of mind, and as long as we don't keep feeding them, they subside. It's just is natural. In the same way, the next perception is couched in the same language. It's perception of cessation. So perception of cessation, ending. In the same way, this is peaceful, this is sublime. That is the stilling of all activities, relinquishment of all acquisitions, destruction of craving, cessation, nibbana. This is called the perception of cessation. Cessation is an interesting word. It's very hard to translate it in another way, but it's helpful to reflect on it in maybe broaden our, because usually when we think of cessation, we think of a discrete thing or event which has arisen and is then coming to an end, and that's cessation. But another way of approaching it in terms of cessation can also be non-arising. And so like when there's a when we don't feed it, stimulate it, poke it, scratch at it, it doesn't arise. And so that is a cessation. So that non-arising is a helpful perception as well. There's a non-arising of greed, or non-arising of whatever. Oh, isn't that peaceful when it's not arising? And so that to really make that conscious, because sometimes we think, oh, we've got to make this cease, and then we get involved in annihilating it, and that makes it busy in the mind. But just letting it be, oh, this is peaceful, this is sublime, and that sense of stilling of all activities, the relinquishment of all acquisitions. Acquisitions, in this sense, is in the Pali is upadi, which is what we acquire mostly is body, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. That's what we're, in the end, what acquisitions are, upadi, the basis of becoming. Why don't we take the opportunity to, this is an overall theme of a meditation theme. Why don't we actually meditate on these themes? Yeah.
Can I just
Mhm.
Like first you have to let go of something,
Yeah.
then you have to watch it fade away,
Yeah.
and then it ceases and doesn't arise again.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That sounds very good. Yeah. 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 No, that sounds good. Yeah.
When I read the sutta on Tuesday, I was struck, as you pointed out, to those last two being couched in the same language. And I reflected on it today, the thought arose, well, the others have more activity in them. You bring to mind something.
Yeah.
And those two, it's couched in the formal meditation language. Those who arise on their own
Mm.
as you practice rather than bringing it up.
Mhm. Yeah, it's helpful, but also you do have the option of making that a perception, where this is, because what you're doing is, again, presenting possibilities to the mind. It's like presenting the possibility to the mind of the mind really being dispassionate or being still, and being sublime. Okay, let's take the opportunity to sit quietly. And to so that as a meditation, again, this exercising perception, perceiving our experience in a certain way, with a certain angle or way of feeling it, and so that perceiving through impermanence, just lifting up that experience of change, transience, uncertainty, and how does that affect our experience? Is it helpful? Because that's at any of these perceptions, for them to be performing their function or duty, then it really should be helping the mind to be established in wholesome dhammas, wholesome states. Mind being more clear, more peaceful, more reflective, having a reflective understanding. Experiencing a certain well-being, that's intrinsic to the, say, wholesome mental states. And bringing up not self, which can be helpful, or it can, for some people, it can turn it into just this conundrum that we start to chew over in our mind, which is then an obstruction. So then, just see, how does it affect the mind, and how can we use this perception? Because when it's that sense of experiencing something that's whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, and so, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. not my monkey, not my circus. So I don't have to make a big deal of this. It's not self. It helps that process of shedding. You have the asubha sanya, perception of the unattractive. That can be a very helpful. I mean, it's the classic meditation or advice given to overcome that sensual craving, lust, so that is coming back to the body. Similarly with adinawa, perceiving the dangers, the drawbacks. It tends to help rein in that outgoing energy, that kind of that a quest for gratification. So then that helps the mind to settle. Pahana sanya, perception of abandoning. That whatever we have, we experience, we consume, possess, external, internal, refined or coarse, we don't have to hang on to it. We don't have to keep it. We don't have to maintain it. We can abandon it. And the abandoning isn't just shunning or pushing away, but it's this is getting heavy. I think I'll put it down. It's that simple. Seeing something being, this is heavy, this is a burden, I can abandon it. I can put it down. Similarly, that viraga sanya, perception of dispassion. It's a cooling, that quality of dispassion, cooling, settling. And just as in the wording of that, this is peaceful, this is sublime. That's the heart is delighting in the simplicity of our experience, or the possibility of the simplicity of seeing and experiencing things in their true nature. So that's a that dispassion, fading away, and that nirodha sanya, perception of cessation, allowing things to cease, recognizing when they don't arise. Perception of non-arising is another way. So that these, and similarly, that's it. This is peaceful. This is sublime. Stilling of all activities, relinquishment of all acquisitions, destruction of craving, cessation, nibbana, that really true cooling, settling. So this is where these can take us, and where we should be, again, lifting up that perception so that it's opens up the possibility that it will take us. It's like where the Buddha saying that these perceptions, being of great fruit and benefit, and culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as their consummation. These are the possibility, so that opening up our attention, and being reflective, and learning how to play with these perceptions as well. Sometimes we try to clobber the mind with the meditation subjects, and it's really like learning how to play with it, experiment with it, see how it works, see what happens, see what we can do with it, take an interest. So that working with perception. So we can just sit quietly for a bit and use the sort of mindfulness of breathing as the anchor, but then direct attention to where is the perceptions, the thoughts that are there, how to use them skillfully. Okay, so we could have a bit of a break. Come back in 15 minutes. Okay, welcome back. Thought I'd begin the rest of the session just coming back from the break and just see if anybody has any questions before I continue. Yes, Flavia.
So, perception of staying calm.
Uh-huh.
So, there's awareness of perception of calm.
Yes.
Okay, so all of them arise together.
Yes.
So, and then the other is, I don't know if I heard right, cognition and consciousness, where they spoke about it.
Well, cognition is part of I mean it's part of the translation of consciousness. In that, I mean, there's many different ways that one can translate these terms, but that is how it was translated there. Yeah. Yes, Karina.
I'm just trying to get the bigger picture on the perception of the danger, all things that can happen to the human body.
Yes.
Is the purpose of that to change up our usual perception of, oh, it's a human body, it's wonderful, it's going to last forever?
Yes, yes. I mean, that's part of that perception. And of course these are just like seeding perception so that one can extend that. It's sort of like creating a certain perception. Say like one can, the example is of the body. I mean, it could be, of the world, it's like perception of the forest. Oh, nature, isn't it wonderful and warm and fuzzy? And, until you get stung by a bee or bitten by a rattlesnake and it's, it changes perception real quickly. So they're hidden in the things that we are attracted to or that we find desirable are also the things that are a danger or that are a drawback. Of course, the opposite can be true as well, in the sense of the things that we perceive as difficult. They can also be a source of learning, understanding, but it's a perception that we create. So that I think a lot of it, of this, using these 10 perceptions, is just learning how to step out of our usual habits and assumptions and realize that we've got, okay, there's some leeway here, there's some wiggle room to experience or perceive in different ways.
So I was just thinking about the audience of this message, and I'm sure you had some kind of pain.
Yes. I mean, that's actually, I think that it is helpful to bring it back to the specific. One of the reasons why the Buddha is giving this teaching, the teaching is to Girimananda, who is really ill, really sick, and the purpose is to alleviate his suffering and his illness, so that for planting the seed of for Girimananda to perceive the unattractive nature of the body, to perceive the drawbacks and dangers of the physical body, all the illnesses that are possible, and sort of taking that, and then taking that to a place of dispassion. Yeah. Yes.
So actually my question kind of follows up from that. And in a way I'm asking if I did the
Yeah.
So just as I sat, like the first thing I noticed was this little ongoing pain I've been having the last few days. So I said, okay, that's the object.
Yeah.
And then just sort of instinctively knew which of the perceptions we talked about
Yeah.
to sort of apply to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that just sort of led from there.
Yeah.
So my sense is that perception, the way we're using it here, is a lens. There
Yes.
still has to be a meditation object. Those
Yeah.
perceptions are not the object.
Well, I mean, they,
I guess
you
they
know,
could be, but I didn't know how to make that.
they work together. But certainly that you know, we take it as an object, and then the attention can be drawn into that how we perceive it. So it's and then we work with it as an object, so that we can then cultivate a sense of either clarity, mindfulness, well-being, understanding. So there, it's.
I just got like, okay, this is impermanent.
Yeah.
But now I can
Yeah, and that's that's you know, using it skillfully into its purpose. So yeah, it's just giving us tools. I think one of the things that is helpful is to it's like there's realizing that there's many different ways that we can be engaged and engaging in our practice, as opposed to waiting for it to happen magically somehow, and which can be a problem. Yes.
Could you speak some more about drowsiness? Mostly because in these perceptions, for example, with food, or with us thinking about the opposites of where it's going to end up, it's sufficient to sort of calm down that sense of lust toward that object. But for drowsiness,
Yeah. That's where you don't sort of pick up oh, this is peaceful, this is sublime. As sort of picking up an object that is this is a danger, this is a drawback, this is because you want something to arouse energy, arouse interest. Or so this is impermanent. How is it impermanent? How is it changing? How is it? So there is a certain questioning and stimulating that, so that it counteracts the tendency to say to drowsiness or dullness, or when recognizing when the mind's starting to drift. Because even if the mind is really starts to get very peaceful, it's, oh wow, this is really nice and peaceful, and then all of a sudden it's you know, boom, it's like so quickly, like it's wow, it's sleepy, or you know, kind of, or it's just is you know, one falls into a bit of dullness. So then it's just lifting up an object again, lifting up a perception, so that there's an engaging in some way. So that's how we're really learning how to work with the mind, and it isn't as if there's some sort of finished, polished product that we're trying to maintain and be really precious about. It's why, oh wow, no, this is an opportunity to really practice with, train with, work with these different aspects of the mind and of experience, and we have this framework of perceptions to help us. Yeah, John.
Could you talk a little bit about skillful use of perception of abandoning, so that it doesn't move into aversion or just trying to keep something out? As they use the terms used include terminates, obliterates.
Yes. Yes. You notice that I didn't read all of it.
I
Annihilate. I'm not. Yeah.
and I want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'd like to abandon it.
Yeah.
I can sit with it, and then I can say, okay, that's not mine, that's not me.
Yeah.
But then it says, no, it is you. I'm not going
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things is that to me, one of the ways of encouraging that quality of abandoning is a recognition of the burdensome nature of our suffering, or the burdensome nature of our, or even if our commitment to gratification and pleasure, it becomes burdensome. It becomes hard work, and we can put it down. We can abandon it. We can set it aside, and so that sense of abandoning is just giving ourselves the opportunity to not have to carry that burden with us, and so that's a way that I feel is a helpful way of framing it, so that we actually do give ourselves the opportunity to abandon it, but without bringing in obliterating and annihilating, which can, in our minds, will oftentimes turn to negativity and aversion and judgment. It's more like, oh no, yeah, I've carried this long enough. I can put it down. I don't have to carry it. Yeah.
Maybe you're going to get to this later, in which case I can wait. But what about the whole second part of this sutta, the benefit of this sutta about healing?
Right.
And how does that fit in?
Well, I think one of the things is I think, well, some people might say, well, is that actually, is that a real thing? Because it says, his affliction immediately subsided. Venerable Girimananda recovered from that affliction. That is how he was cured of his affliction. And that, was that actually a real thing? And yeah, absolutely. I think because one of it's like the healing quality of, there's a, like that desire for the Dhamma, that delight in the Dhamma, Dhamma ragena Dhamma piti. It's just as, it has a transformative effect on the body as well. And that's so personally I don't think it's just some sort of commentarial gloss or some kind of hagiography thing. That I think that has definitely has the power when we do really delight in Dhamma and take joy in the Dhamma, then that has a healing power in the body. And there's Thai forest tradition. You read the biographies of the various meditation masters, and a lot of them. One is the age that they were in the sense that there weren't many options for medical treatment, so that they would oftentimes resort to what in Thai was Dhamma Osot, which is like medicine of the Dhamma, and to make a commitment to sitting meditation or doing some particular practice and really giving oneself to it, so that it and then it oftentimes elicits a response physically. And also just just like the power of samadhi, when the mind goes into deep states of stillness, there's what the body experiences is something quite healing and harmonizing. When the mind does go into a state of real stillness and clarity, one comes out really energized and bright. It's just really feeling that, and that's quite ordinary. So that has an effect on the physical well-being, and then certain personally know monks who've dealt with illness in that way. I mean, I think of I remember it was one of Ajahn Chah's disciples. Remember him? I was talking with him, and he was saying a period of time when he lives in Tamsang Pet. It's a forest monastery, that branch of Wat Pah Pong, and it's quite a large forest, about 1,000 acres, but especially in those days, it had a lot of malaria, and so he was experiencing malaria. In those days, treatment just wasn't that available. And he said one day he was just tired of the malaria fevers, and he determined the sala is quite large. It's got a nice breeze going through it. It's quite very pleasant, and he so he sat with his back against one of the pillars, and he just kept coming back to his meditation object, his breath, and Buddha. Just kept and then his mind entered samadhi, and then he sat within that for, he said, he's not even sure how long. It was probably quite some time, and this both being still and quiet, but then also contemplating the body, and then when he finally came out of the meditation, during the meditation he felt completely cool and bright, and then when he came out of the meditation, around him was he was sitting in a puddle. He'd been sweating with fever, and so there was this wet spot all around him, but his fever had broken, and it never came back. Didn't come back at that time. So that just using that, Dhamma medicine. So that that's something that is reasonably common in the Thai forest tradition. Nothing else is working, it's okay. Dhamma also. Yes.
Jason Schneider from Wisconsin asked a question.
Yeah.
How could you use any of these perceptions in a very demanding and fast-paced workplace where performance is important?
Well, I mean, one of the things is using the perceptions to be able to help clear the mind, and not get caught in reactivity and complication, so that if one overthinks these perceptions, then they can be complicating and problematic. But it's just realizing, okay, I've got ways of relating to the particular reactions that I'm having, either with a colleague or to a particular task, and I can direct attention in that way so that it can be, or in a way that can be helpful for creating more clarity and a sense of well-being. And that's really important to keep, it's like keeping an eye on the goal rather than getting too caught in all the details of trying to get all 10 reflections working, or even one of them somehow. But it's like recognizing that these are tools to be drawn upon to help the mind become more aware, attentive, clear, stable.
By listening to the questions today and by reflecting on my own thinking about practice, I have a feeling we're a bit put off when we're asked to fabricate perceptions, because we all kind of imagine we're looking for some form of pure
Right.
consciousness state, and we're kind of unconsciously or subconsciously looking for eternal existence in a way.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, have you seen that happening in Asia as well? Do you think it could be influenced by the New Age movement or even the Christian background? Because I feel those views are really deeply ingrained. And then when we're asked, you can fabricate perception, you can use it as a vehicle to develop this passion. We're a bit confused. We're like, oh, but I thought it was about letting go of things and being still. So
yeah. No, I think it's pretty universal. It might be slightly shades of confusion, but generally that sense of assumption that we have to maybe free the mind from all its like we shouldn't be using thought. Mind should be still and clear. But we have to learn how to use the different faculties of the mind in its different ways, or to be reflecting on them, seeing their function, their place, and then learning how to apply them so that they're of benefit to us. Otherwise, we end up pushing this down. It's like whack-a-mole. You push that one down and it pops up over there, and then it pops up over there. So that is learning how to use these, and especially perception. Then you can seed the mind in a skillful way, so that it's supportive for our practice, and we learn how to encourage ourselves. And sometimes the encouragement is ways of letting go. Sometimes it's ways of lifting things up in the mind. Yeah. Okay, John.
What I took, the second part of this is on mindfulness. There's that whole part of settling through mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
After he goes through the 10 perceptions.
Right.
But the 10th is actually mindfulness.
Well, the 10th is mindfulness of breathing, yeah.
But it seems to me that one is a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's this lifting up that you're talking about, which I think is very appropriate for someone who's sick, where there is that sinking that happens when they're sick. The mind starts to sink, so that lifting up is really appropriate. And then that 10th, though, is like a settling. There's something different at work there.
Yeah, and I'll weave that in. Yeah. I won't let you get past it. Okay? Maybe one question? Hmm?
Question from Rick Center.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a condensed version.
Hmm?
He says, the mind goes into these automatic perceptions based out of survival instincts.
Yes.
So he's asking how you would work with that.
Well, I mean, again, it's real. They're automatic, but they're automatic because they're a habit, and we can create an alternative to those through our cultivation of these different perceptions, so that it's like just creating a different habit, a different track for the mind to go down, a different track for the mind to choose from, so that many of the perceptions that we have been cultivated through our own personal experience or through our social experience, but we tend to have been unknowing recipients of them, as opposed to engaging with them consciously. And this is what the Buddha is giving us an opportunity to do, is engage with that perceptual process consciously, so that we've got more skillful choices, and our automatic response starts to be very different than what it used to be. Yeah.
I'm wondering if Rick's question is related to what you talked about earlier about the two different meanings of sanya. In a way, the perception that he's talking about is the kanda of sanya, but which is sort of a noun, and we're working with almost with a verb.
Yes and no, in the sense that even the kanda of perception is a noun because we have created it. And so it's not as if it's a fixed entity. It's what we make of it, really. So that can change as well. I mean, it has a certain function, but how we experience and what we experience through that lens of the kanda perception is going to be different at different times. It's different when we were children. It's different when we were young adults. It's different when we're as old as we are now. Okay, I'm going to give a bit more of and continue on with the sutta, because I left you dangling at perception number 7, and there's 3 more in the sequence that the Buddha gives, and that the 8th one is anabhirata sanya, which is the perception of not taking delight, so that they're not taking delight in the entire world, not taking stepping back from the world. And the way the Buddha frames it is, here a bhikkhu refrains from any engagement in clinging, mental standpoints, adherences, and underlying tendencies in regard to the world, abandoning them without clinging to them. This is called the perception of non-delight in the entire world. And so that's interesting option. You see how we've been, this process has been building alternatives for our perception, so that to be able to step back from that habit of clinging, attachment, engaging with especially from a self-identity viewpoint, and being able to stepping back from our this mental standpoints, in the sense of our views, our opinions, our cherished ideas and ideals about things, what we adhere and cling to, and then even the underlying tendencies or habits that we've accumulated over time, realizing that all of that can be seen through a different perspective, in the sense especially that just not taking delight in, and not taking delight in the sense that one doesn't assume its truth, its reality, its specialness, its uniqueness, and then we can. That's when we start experiencing things from a very fresh perspective, and say, how can I relate to myself? And because when we say the entire world, it isn't just the world out there; the world's really in here. So that this relating to the world in a way where we're not just jumping on the bandwagon of whatever mood that pops into the mind or opinion that flits through the mind. So that is a way of being able to help to again to settle the mind. So that's just not taking delight and lifting that up as a perception. That's something that is possible. And the last one is interesting in the sense that because the very first one was anicca sanya, perception of impermanence, and then the ninth one is perception of impermanence of conditioned phenomena. So that if you didn't get impermanence the first time around, the Buddha is sort of really driving that stake in, and that pay attention to impermanence, uncertainty, inconstancy, not a sure thing. I mean, that's just that transient nature, changing nature of all internal, external phenomena, coarse or refined, near or far. It is all, whatever is of the nature to be, say, of a conditioned nature, it is, it's going to be impermanent. And that, like there's a beautiful discourses in, beautiful verses in the Dhammapada, where the Buddha saying all conditioned things, sambe sankhara, which is that's all conditioned things, all compounded things, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purification. This is a very simple statement, but it's and of course those verses are also repeated similarly with all conditioned things are unsatisfactory when one sees this with wisdom. one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purification. All things are not self. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purification. So that the goal and the essence of that contemplation of anicca, dukkha, anatta, but in this explicitly that anicca, impermanence aspect, seeing that with wisdom, perceiving that in all things, with wisdom, with discernment, the logical result of that is just to turn away from suffering. It's why create more problems, more difficulties, more discontent, more dissatisfaction. These things are not as substantial and fraught as we usually feel they are. So that gives us an opportunity. This is the path to purification. So that's and I think it's a really helpful the way that Ajahn Munindo, because he does his Dhammapada for contemplation, using and he just usually it's just a little twist on it, but I think it's an important twist. As I say, all conditioned things are impermanent. When we see this with insight, we will tire of this life of suffering. This is the way to path of purification. And just realizing, actually, I don't have to suffer over this. It's a really important insight. So that perception, or the result of that perception, is that recognition that it's not that all things are impermanent, changing, miserable, onerous. It's sort of, all things are impermanent, and I don't have to make a problem out of it. Wow, that's pretty cool. So that using that perception, again, lifting it up in the mind. And then the last piece of the sutta is, or the last perception. Like you notice, all of these are anicca sanya, anatta sanya, subha sanya. All of them are sanyas, and then the last is anapanasati. And it doesn't sort of say anapanasati sanya. It's anapanasati. So that and this and I think that's an encouragement to be using again the meditation on mindfulness of breathing as an anchor for one's cultivation, one's development, one's practice of settling the mind as well as investigating. On a certain level, anapanasati could have been the first one. Like calm the mind, settle the mind, develop that. As well as the last. I think it's important to tie it all up. I was kind of tying it all up with a nice bow on top. Anapanasati, the cultivation of the mindfulness of breathing, but that also recognizes that the mindfulness of breathing is, in its full presentation, is the cultivation of the four foundations of mindfulness. That framework of mindfulness of breathing is synonymous with the framework of the four foundations of mindfulness. That there's that 16 steps mindfulness of breathing, the four tetrads, broken into four tetrads with the body, feeling, mind, and mind objects. So that learning how to use that mindfulness of breathing so that there's a development of the meditation and the mindfulness that helps the mind to be settled and clear and perceptive of our experience. So that cultivation of the mindfulness of breathing is it's sort of, again, where you're calming the mind, settling the mind, having a structure to keep training the mind, so that there's you can get a sense of more clearly, what are the habits that I bring into my perception of myself and the world? What are the possibilities? How do I create a sense of stillness and brightness? It's not just sort of making the mind still. And one of the idioms that the Thai teachers used is sort of the like samadhi, or I say the still meditative mind, like a tree stump. It's not really what we're cultivating. And there's again this, in the same way of the lifting up perceptions into the mind, one's lifting up the objects of mindfulness of breathing in its different ways. You're lifting it up into the mind and learning how to sustain attention or reflect or investigate so that there's a increased knowledge and understanding, increased clarity that arises from that. So that our meditations are sort of the anapanasati. How do we settle the mind? How do we delight the mind? How do we make it clear? What does it mean to be peaceful? And also that anapanasati, so especially when it's taken in the context of the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha, and actually these days we're with the new chanting book that we've got here, then we chant the Anapanasati Sutta, and then it's sort of in Pali and English, and it's so we're reflecting on. But that is the Buddha saying, because when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. When the four foundations of mindfulness are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the 7 enlightenment factors. When the 7 enlightenment factors are developed and cultivated, they fulfill true knowledge and deliverance. And then the Buddha again. And how, bhikkhus, is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated, and so that it is of great fruit and great benefit. And then it goes into the actual nuts and bolts instruction. But that sense of the realizing that it's, that mindfulness of breathing is helping to tie into the that cultivation, development of the four foundation mindfulness, sub-factors of enlightenment, knowledge and deliverance. Was building the foundation for that. And of course, these different perceptions that we use are these 10 in the Girimananda Sutta are ones that I think it is helpful to think of it in terms, these were instructions to Girimananda, who was very ill, and those were particularly tuned to him, and they had their effect. I mean, his disease was allayed, and he got better. But there's a whole range of perceptions that we can choose and experiment with and work with that that we have to learn how to tune to our own practice and what's going to be useful, what's going to be beneficial for us. Learning how to use perception, learning how to engage in the perceptual process as opposed to being, because sometimes there's this, we've got to be impartial observers of the mind. And I don't think there is such a thing, but then trying to do that is okay. What's the result? I think we need to realize, we have the opportunity to engage in and create an affect within the mind. We can be proactive in supporting the perceptions that lead to our increased peace, clarity, understanding. So, any questions? Yeah.
Why did the Buddha make the decision not to go himself?
Well,
He must have seen something would be more effective than not going.
could be. Ananda was extremely compassionate monk, and I imagine that the Buddha in real life would probably be a bit kind of intimidating, awe-inspiring, and real, sort of. I think Ananda much more warm and fuzzy and approachable, really explicitly really kind. So that could be. Could also be that the Buddha wasn't sort of just a Buddha. He was an abbot of a many duties, many things to do. Yeah.
There's another aspect to it, which is if the Buddha had gone himself,
Yeah.
it would be a sutta about Buddha-nusati. We would be recollecting the Buddha's specialness, and it was the Buddha's specialness that healed Girimananda. Whereas instead, he gives this teaching, and Ananda transmits the teaching, and it's a sutta about Dhamma-nusati, recollecting the teachings.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
What's the number of the Dhammapada verse that you cited?
277 to 279.
I whispered to you.
It was a proxy question.
This is true, yeah. Yeah, this isn't just, don't just look to me, but, again, in sort of Ananda, it's not really just about the Buddhist specialness, but yeah, it's the whole, packet of the refuges in different ways, and how the Sangha can be supportive of each other.
In developing these insights, the Buddha is actually teaching us to change our views and opinions, really, which is a very profound thing, because we're so wedded to our views and opinions.
Yes, exactly, and that's the you think in terms of what are the asavas, the really root defilements, and it's more toward the end of the Buddha's teachings, because there was the Kamasa, Bhavasava, Avijjasava, the asavas of desire, of craving, of becoming, and of ignorance. But then they added the Ditthasava, because I think it's just so ingrained in the mind to take a view, a standpoint, have some kind of opinion about something, have something that we're holding to as it's this way, or it's that way, so that it keeps pulling us down. So then, being able to challenge that tendency to views. Also, the basis of what proliferates the mind, the papancha dhammas, tanha, ditthi, mana. So desire, views, self-cherishing, and so that aspect of proliferates the mind, spins the mind out, keeps it cranking out the garbage. And so that again those perceptions as a helpful tool to be able to abandon or to set aside or to relinquish there's those views, that tendency there. Because that wonderful expression in the Sabbasava Sutta of the this speculative view, bhikkhus, is called the thicket of views, the wilderness of views, the contortion of views, the vacillation of views, the fetter of views. Fettered by the fetter of views, the untaught ordinary person is not freed from birth, aging, and death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. He is not freed from suffering, I say. These views. I love that. Thicket of views, wilderness of views. So, yeah, it's deeply ingrained, and that's why we have to be conscious about the that cultivation of an alternative, giving our mind an alternative track to go down, and to become familiar with, so that these different perceptions. And what we do, we familiarize the mind with them, and we train with it, we work with it, and as the mind becomes more familiar with those, then different unskillful habits, different unskillful views, and different identities that we create about ourselves or we project out, they fall away. And so that's the kind of the use. It isn't just sort of taking perceptions as a club and beating them to death somehow. So there's just really giving the mind an alternative that it can it can understand and realize its importance. Okay.
I do have a question. It's kind of when I first read the one about non-delight in the world,
Yeah.
my first reaction was like, oh, I don't like that one.
Right.
Because I interpret it as, it's important to engage in the world.
Mm-mm.
But then, what it reminded me of actually is when I've come here for a longer period of time, or even just a day or two, and then gone home, and I look at everything and it looks different. It's fresh and more subtle. The things that I was stuck on, I'm like, oh yeah, I can throw that away now. Why did I even worry about that?
Right.
So I just find it so interesting because it's like the idea of a vacation. It's like a vacation for the mind.
Yeah.
You come back and you can see all the thickets and
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So would it be helpful to actively take on something, like not in a formal meditation setting, but to take on a different perception? Like I realized just while you were talking through the things, like I don't actually look at people anymore. It's like I see them, I look at them long enough so I recognize who they are. And then I don't really look at them anymore.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting for me to actually just like look at someone as if, it's a different body standing in front of me than last time I saw it.
Yeah. Don't get too weird, but no, but that. But I think it's important to give again, as I was saying, like really giving oneself the opportunity to realize, we assume these things into existence, and whether it's ourselves or the world around us. So then, by using these perceptions, then we can give a bit more room for them to not be exactly how we assume, and that gives us a lot of freedom to sort of then make choices as to what's actually going to be skillful, what's going to be beneficial, what's actually going to accord with Dhamma, and so that's its I would say its great benefit. Really reassessing it.
Thank you for the opportunity to come here.
Okay, so as I mentioned very early on today, right at the very beginning, this is the overarching theme for the day is meditation. So that it'd be good if we ended it's just after 4 o'clock. I'll give a bit of a guided meditation using Anapanasati, and then we can finish the afternoon with a period of sitting. Okay, so when the Buddha gives his instruction in mindfulness of breathing, he begins with the grounding attention in the posture, sitting in an upright posture, and just knowing the body, knowing the posture, relaxing into the posture, and alert and attentive to the breath coming in and the breath going out. As we settle into just that experience of the body breathing, we can tune into what's the texture of the breath. So, breathing in long, one knows I breathe in long. Breathing out long, one knows I breathe out long. Or it could be short, breathing in short. One knows one breathes in short, breathing out short. So just tuning into the texture. Is the breath long? And is it short? Is it feeling a bit coarse? Does it feel really fine? Kind of soft? Just tuning into the texture of the breath. One can feel the whole sensation of the breath, say, either picking a particular point at the abdomen, the chest, back of the throat, tip of the nose, and sort of whichever seems comfortable, easy, apparent. Where is it most apparent? And then recognizing that texture of the breath, sensation of the breath. But then within the context of the body, experiencing the whole body. I breathe in, experiencing the whole body. I breathe out. Say, just that. We have a context for the breathing, the breath. This process is taking place within the body, and we can settle into being comfortable in the body, or at least acknowledging that we have a body. Sometimes just trying to get people to experience the reality that there's something below their necks is it's tough sometimes. We spend a lot of time up in our heads. So experiencing the whole body. Breathe in, experiencing the whole body. Breathe out, bringing the breath down into the body. And calming the body. I breathe in, or calming the body, and it's actually calming the bodily formation is the literal sense. Calming the bodily formation, I breathe out, kaya sankhara. And that could be the body itself, and we do need to calm the body, calm the experience of the body. It's also calming the breath. One of the translations is the body conditioner. The breath is the primary conditioner of the body. So learning how to calm it, settle it, soothe it, allow it to become peaceful. And the breath can be the vehicle for introducing calm and stability into the mind. It's just using the body as a vehicle. There's a settling of the whole system. As we continue to be interested in the experience of being mindful of our breathing, mindful of our bodies, there's going to be a natural well-being arise, even a sense of joy, and to just allowing that to not to get in the way of that well-being. And so when we let things drop away in terms of conflicting thoughts and feelings, planning, scheming, and just being mindful of the body, mindful of the breath. It's quite natural for that sense of joy to arise. And so that's what the Buddha, on a feeling level, the Buddha encourages us to experiencing joy, I breathe in. Experiencing joy, I breathe out. This letting these qualities of Similar, the next one is happiness. Experiencing happiness, I breathe in. Experiencing happiness, I breathe out. Those are fundamental feeling that arises when we let mindfulness do its work. And then that starts to shed light on the process of the mind, the building blocks of the mind. Experiencing the mind conditioners, I breathe in. Feeling and perception. Calming the mind conditioners, citta sankhara. It's learning about that process of what builds the mind, what formulates it, what forms it, what formations are actually there. As we get more calm, we can see that more clearly. Just using these simple process of mindfulness of breathing. A very similar process in terms of that's with feeling, with mind. It's like one of those is like gladdening the mind, I breathe in. Gladdening the mind, I breathe out. And taking the actual mood of the mind, the tone of the mind, the kind of experience of the mind. And then the Buddha shifts into the aspects of insight and investigation, impermanence, dispassion, cessation, relinquishment, as we breathe in, as we breathe out. And these are ways of working with this mindfulness of breathing. Of course, we can be relying on those perceptions that we've seeded the mind with before, or continue to work with them. But that mindfulness of breathing is a way where we can really integrate our practice. We bring it together, allow it to come to a certain fruition. So that we can use this next bit of time just to sit quietly and direct attention to the mindfulness of breathing, seeing what's useful, what ways to direct attention in a skillful way, what perceptions to lift up in the mind as one is breathing in, breathing out. But seeing this anapanasati as something that truly of great fruit and great benefit. So we can sit quietly. Perhaps we could end with a dedication, the chant. The verses of sharing and aspiration. Does anybody remember the page it's on? $32? Okay, great. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain a threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind with mindfulness and wisdom, prosperity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and illusion be dispelled. Okay.